Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé bears all. Let's watch.
It's advised not to fly, because it's dangerous. But you know me, I'm always doing something on the edge.
Yeah.
And I did it, and we stayed out a little bit too late, and then I couldn't sleep, and then I started hurting. I took a pain pill, and I had like 30 minutes sleep.
Yeah, I knew something was going on because I've seen you walk off before, but
All right, so they're talking about the last tell-all in which Angela was verbally abusive to Michael and to Lydia, Michael's aunt, and walked off the stage. I think maybe came back, but anyway. And Sean is like, something seemed off about you. Sean knows her better than we would, but I don't know. It looked par for the course with Angela's behavior. But Angela is saying that she just had surgery, she just flew, she didn't get a lot of sleep, she took a pain med. Okay, those are factors, but all of us have been tired before and maybe on a mild opiate medication prescribed by our prescribers, and we still wouldn't ever come close to what Angela did during the tell-all. So it's not an excuse.
God, this is my life. And I felt bad, after I went back there and I realized I cussed her and all, because I've never done it. I'm like, oh my God.
All right, so she says she feels bad, which is good. And I hope she elaborates on that, because that would, it would make me feel better. Not that my feelings matter, but I would feel better about the people around her if she had at least some awareness of how her behavior is abusive and unfair. So she's saying, seems genuine that she feels bad about it. So let's see if she talks more.
What the hell did I felt bad for Michael.
yeah.
So I had to apologize, but I said, I'm sorry, to cuss you and all, but you crossed boundaries.
There it is. I feel bad that, I cussed it all, but you cross boundaries. That's the apology of an abuser. Abusers often will apologize. It's part of the abuse cycle often. They will abuse and then will realize, one, maybe they crossed the line, but they can't fully take responsibility for their behavior because their behavior was generated from a place of personality disorder anyway. And they might actually feel as though they're losing their partner. The abused victim will be distancing themselves, and the abuser will be scared and will realize, I have to apologize. And we've seen this cycle a number of times on the show. And by the way, I haven't talked about this, but some people sent me some news articles of Jeffrey and Varia. He apparently was convicted, and maybe he will be sentenced soon, of domestic violence charges. I don't know what the charges were specifically, but it was in reference to something that happened a few years ago with another partner before Varia. Varia was her name? And how it was, from the account, a very brutal, violent act. And so anyway, I don't know why I'm saying that, but I'm just saying that if you want to look up those news stories, you can on the internet. But anyway, but know that it can be very triggering. The story, it's not a mild domestic violence account. It's quite disturbing. So for the abuser, they will realize, oh, I'm losing someone, and then they say, I have to apologize. And so they will apologize sometimes, but that won't really be an apology, because they don't see the world that way. And to give up power would to give up their defense mechanism of power. And so we hear that again, and Angela's done this many times, where it's like, oh, I'm sorry for cussing you out, but you push me too far sometimes. And it's very quickly made out to be the other person's fault. So it's disappointing.
Mm-hmm. I'm a grown woman. This is my marriage, not yours.
So right away, just right into I don't know why I got sucked in. It's like, I thought, oh, she's taking responsibility. She seems genuinely sorry, and maybe she is, but it's, again, very quickly followed up with all the excuses. Yeah, Aunt Lydia was commenting on the marriage, calling you out on your abusive behavior, by the way, in what I believe to be a justified action based on what we've seen on the show. And then you proceeded to bully and yell and scream and not let anyone talk, which is what you do frequently, and call names. And, it becomes normalized to us because that's Angela. But no, it's not okay. And this is how abusers get away with their behavior, is they will make everyone around them normalize their behavior. They'll be like, they slowly acclimate everyone to their behavior. And when you say, that's just that person. No. I mean, the contrast to think about is, what else could Angela have done? Or what would someone else have done? What would you have done when Aunt Lydia starts calling you out in your behavior? Even if you believe you didn't do anything wrong, all you got to say is like, I guess I don't agree with that. Even if you're like totally against what the person is saying. Now, the most mature thing is to listen to the feedback and go, really? I did that? Sorry about that. But even if you were to completely push back in a pathological way, there's ways to do it that don't involve abusing and verbally abusing other people, right? So just the fact that she's made us, become accustomed to behavior, we need to see it for what it is.
Did you apologize to Aunt Lydia?
On stage, yeah.
Have you talked to her since?
Nope.
Do you guys have any communication at all? None. I think, did you flash?
Right, so she's saying that she did apologize to Aunt Lydia during the tell-all on camera, and she did, but again, is it sufficient? Is it a real apology? A real apology would look like this. It would say, okay, I'm so sorry, Lydia. I was triggered. I don't know what happened there. I'm really sorry. I said a lot of horrible things. I didn't let you talk, and I will now. But I just want to apologize for saying terrible things. It's completely unjustified. You've done nothing to justify what I did. And, you could elaborate on that. I can imagine it would really hurt people. I do it to Michael all the time. I was treated that way when I was growing up, and I just do that kind of stuff. I'm really sorry. Okay, if she said something like that, end of story, no but, no however, then that would be an appropriate apology. I don't think we heard that from her. And now Sean was like, did you flash? Yeah, she did flash. And I remember being sort of confused as to why someone would do that. A lot of people commented below, because I asked people, like, why would you do that? And people commented. But anyway, let's see what Angela says here.
Folks, at the tell-all, I'm trying to remember. I think there was a flash moment, wasn't there?
There was two, I think.
Not one, but two.
Two.
Okay.
I don't know why I did the second one. It was
that the medication? Do you think you want to blame it on that?
Yeah, we're going to go blame it on the medication.
Yeah, good for her for saying that, no, it wasn't the medication. She's making a joke. It's interesting. She said, I don't know why I did that. That's interesting. And that's a step in the right direction of just like, because normally she would say, I did that because da-da-da, someone crossed a boundary with me. Now she's like, yeah, I don't know why I did it. Sean introduces, was that the medication? She's like, yeah, let's joke it. Let's say it's that. Now, I don't want people to pile on with Angela. I don't want anyone to bully Angela. We don't know Angela. We don't know her situation. We only see these little snippets on the show. The reason why I want to emphasize that the behavior is abusive and that it's not okay and that we should not be accustomed to it and we shouldn't allow ourselves to be accustomed to it is for our lives. A lot of you have and are now being verbally and physically and sexually abused potentially, because there's a big enough audience watching this. Percentage-wise, some of you are out there. And for me, I want you to hear from me that that is not okay if that's what you are experiencing. To experience that, you likely, because you're trapped, believe, well, when you're trapped in an abusive, imagine being in a relationship with Angela, right? And what happens is there's an impulse to run. You're like, oh, I should get out of here. But because you're terrified of running, or, there's all these consequences, you stay but you're aware of how terrible it is. Well, if you stay and you feel like you have to stay, one solution to the cognitive dissonance is just to say, well, it's okay, is to make internal excuses because you're trapped. You don't have any other option. You feel like you don't have any other option. So you're just like, well, I'm stuck in this situation. I might as well try to make the most of it and look at it in a positive light. they really love me. That's why they're doing this. Everyone's like this. They have a temper, or they're acting out their abuse when they were a child. And all those might be true, but it denies the fact that you do not deserve to be treated that way. And you should never consider it. You should never have to be in a position where you have to normalize that behavior and see it as not what it is, which is abusive. That's why I talk about this. Angela, we don't know about her life. We can't judge her. Maybe there's another story. We don't know Michael. We can comment on what's going on here because all of us watching right now can think about our lives, think about our own behavior. Law of averages as well. Some of you are abusive individuals or have engaged in what we would call abusive behavior. And you also were probably abused, and you can start evaluating your own temper and your own behavior and get help for it. There are people who specialize in perpetrators of violence and hostility. It's a really tough thing to get treatment for. You have to admit that you have a problem with it. But what label would you call yourself potentially? To you people who have a temper, let's just say that. For those of you out there who are like, yeah, I have a temper, there's a possibility that you're abusive sometimes. What's abuse? Those are different. There are different definitions of it. But at the very least, you have a temper, and so there's temper. So there's people who identify as having temper. Another word that people might identify is that they are often triggered and will be very upset with their partner because of the way they're being treated and will lecture their partner. So that can enter into abuse anyway. Imagine a world where you feel at peace 99.9% of the time with yourself and your partner and your relationship. I'm guessing that you don't. When you have a temper, when you are lecturing your partner, it's just those times when it gets too much and you end up taking action because it's the only action you know how to take. Imagine a place where you're at peace, that you trust, and you feel hurt by your partner occasionally because that'll happen. And you're like, well, you give them the benefit of the doubt. Or you give them feedback in a way that they actually hear you. Because to you, often people who are what we would call abusive, or what I'm calling, high lecturing people or high temper people, the reason why they're engaging in that behavior, is because you're actually trying to get attachment security. That's often why people do it. It's not always why people do it, but it often is. I found that it often was the reason. So imagine a world in which you felt okay, you felt safe, you felt heard, you felt understood, you felt like your partner had your back, you felt like someone was on your team, but you didn't have to lecture them and you didn't have to get angry, you didn't have to yell, you didn't have to get upset. You could depend on them, you could communicate in a vulnerable way and trust that they would hear you. There's a path towards that, and that is what we call therapy. You have to find a specialist, someone that works with nonviolent communication, someone that works with abuse perpetrators. That's a strong term, but you might want to look into that. People that work with domestic violence, intimate partner violence on both sides of the equation for both perpetrators and victims. If you voluntarily find a therapist, it's your thing. You can talk and know that in all likelihood, they will not call the police. Sometimes people think, well, if I, report my behavior to a therapist, they'll call the police. There's nuances to it, and you want to talk with your therapist about it. But most situations, they wouldn't. Two, they couldn't, because there are actually ethical and confidentiality considerations that therapists have to follow. So just talk with your therapist. There are rare situations, like if you said, I'm going to go home and kill my partner, or there was indications thereof, then yeah, the therapist might actually have to call the authorities to save life. But a lot reporting past things that happen between you and your spouse is generally not reportable. Again, talk to you, and I don't know where you live. It kind of depends on the country you live in, but anyway, we use this show as a jumping off point. So I don't want anyone to hate Angela. I don't want anyone to bully her. I don't want anyone to attack her online. We don't know her, but we can think about our own lives.
I went to one camera to Lydia, and I just happened to do it. And then when I was leaving, I told Michael, last look you'll see of him, or something like that.
No, why did you do that?
I don't know. I have no idea. It pissed me off. Well, I don't know.
I will say I'm encouraged by her saying, I don't know. That's a wonderful place to begin. She's not inserting some self-aggrandizing explanation. She's like, I don't know why I did it. She is almost having a vibe of regret there, right? But also she seems like she doesn't regret it. But I'm encouraged by that. I don't know if she'll capitalize on that confusion and question mark, because that's a great place that I will have clients be, is the ability to just say, like, normally I would have an excuse for that behavior, but I've learned now that I don't know. And that's a great starting point. Okay, let's explore. Let's start hypothesizing. Let's brainstorm. Let's see what fits. Let's try to figure this out, because often the answer to that question is critical to one's relationship health.
Planned or anything like that.
It was
just a spur of the moment decision.
Spur of the moment, like, you want to talk about so much here. Look at them. I paid for them. Shut up. But Aunt Lydia don't get it. I'm doing this so from Michael's eyes, actually. But I'm doing it for me, for health-wise, but actually, after the health, I want my husband, like, now he's starting to notice my boobs.
Totally fine, Angela. If that's the truth, you can say that in a non-abusive manner. There's nothing wrong with what you're saying. I mean, people might debate the wisdom of what she's saying, but it's fine. It's your point of view. Say it like this. Just say it calm. Lydia was calm. Michael was calm. Why couldn't you be calm? Because I believe Angela has a treasure trove, a lot of relational traumas regarding people overpowering her and humiliating her. And there are multiple instances where she seems to be indicating, like, I will not be made a fool of, and I will make a fool of you through my overpowering. I'll shove something in your face. I will put you down. I will call you names. And I will not let you talk, because I need to come out on top, because I'm terrified to have any kind of ambiguity of whether or not I'm on top or not.
But jokingly, I know she's joking.
She didn't seem like she was joking then. Is that because you were mad at him?
Yeah, I wanted him to get jealous and spark him up, and he didn't say nothing. I wanted him to interfere. I wanted you to get mad and say, stop that, and show your side. But you didn't show your side.
All right. So what they're talking about is when, during the tell-all, Angela was flirting with Chuck, and then Sean asked Michael what he thinks, and Michael says, I know she jokes about that kind of thing. And Angela says that, well, what I was doing is I was trying to get you jealous so you would show that you didn't want me to do that. If that's true, yikes. I just imagine that. Just imagine I'm with my wife and we're at a restaurant. I start flirting with another woman, and I'm doing it right in front of my wife so that my wife will step in and say, stop doing that. I mean, what? So, and the fact that when she's calm right now, she feels okay about that. What it points to me, what it says to me, I think, is that the morals that Angela was shown as a child from 0 to 15 were very askew. Because frequently she, when people grow up when they're being treated poorly, or they witness people treating people poorly, it moves the moral compass to a different place where they don't react the same, and it can create behavior like this. It can also create acceptance of bad behavior towards you, because you're just like, well, that's just how people treat people, right? And it takes a long time to learn that your natural reaction to things isn't the way that you should be reacting to things. Someone is abused, or they see violence, going on, or, psychopathic behavior. They grow up, they start dating someone starts on the first date, they start treating them poorly. And they don't feel the injustice. They're like, well, I don't like this, but that's what happens in life because I'm familiar with it. Whereas someone that wasn't treated that way and didn't witness psychopathic behavior as a child, they go on the same date with the same person, they're treated the same way, they immediately go, whoa, what's going on here? I don't like that, because it doesn't feel right. It feels unfamiliar and bad. And so I wonder if Angela experienced a lot of that. I so wish on these shows they would just give us a glimpse of the background of some of these people, because I wouldn't be surprised if Angela comes from a extremely chaotic background as a child.
You didn't show your side. You do it after I get to the hotel. Cusses me out.
You know me now.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Did he say something to you about that after the tell-all?
Yeah, you stop that shit, flirting like that. And I said, "Oh, kiss my ass."
So what? She just got done saying, I was flirting because I wanted him to step in. Then he did eventually say, don't do that. And I told him to kiss my butt. Now, I guess maybe she's saying, look, I wanted you to say it in the moment, but you said it later on. But I don't know about Angela, but this is what abusers will do sometimes, is they'll get you coming and going. They will, whether you comply or you don't, either way, you're going to get the wrong end of the stick, and they're going to abuse you and they're going to criticize you. It's a way of always staying in power, always staying in control, always establishing that you're the idiot, you're the bad one, and I'm not. And I have the power and the right and the privilege to constantly test you all the time. And watch out, because you don't know what kind of 4D chess that I'm playing right now. And the effort is to gaslight and to make the other person feel powerless, make them feel like they can't do anything right, that there's something wrong with them. And I don't know if that's what we're seeing right now, but maybe.
No, baby, no, you lie. You have a lying problem. How can I believe you? How can I believe you? I don't believe nothing you say. That's 2 lies now.
Now, this is true. He did lie multiple times to Angela, and she has a legitimate complaint about that for sure, absolutely. And I'm just remembering, this was a while ago when this happened.
Oh, shit. Shall we go to the 3rd one? Fuck you! You lied again in my face. I am sick of his lying and his bullshit. He's a goddamn liar.
Now, what I think eventually happened was she would just start accusing him of lying when it didn't make a lot of logical sense. And there's also a way of complaining to your partner about lying and building trust back that doesn't involve verbal abuse. So, I mean, there's some reasonable reactivity when you're told that your partner cheated on you, which is what he told her. So there's some, I don't know, normalcy to her reactivity during those moments. But I think some of those scenes, like when they're in the car, if I remember right, she was reacting to things that didn't seem to make a lot of sense, which points towards, one, the traumas of being lied to her by Michael in the past were very impactful to her, which would make sense, and possibly other lies and betrayals that had happened well before Michael.
He can't tell the truth, save his life. No, you're not fucking sorry. There's your...
And it doesn't excuse the lies per se, but when you have an abusive, threatening partner, it can terrify you to the point where you might resort to deception to avoid getting in trouble. And then this scene was just awful. I mean, I get that for some people it's funny because it's a cake, but it's humiliating, it's indicative, it's a visual representation of the humiliation version of abuse that she does to him frequently. And if I remember right, in this moment, there was seemingly no justification for this, as if there ever would be, really. And it plays into that dynamic that seems to be present for Angela of humiliation. I think she was humiliated greatly. And when there's any kind of question of a power differential where she feels like she's losing power, where she risks becoming humiliated, she will humiliate. And because, that's a humiliation act, I think.
Cake, Michael. I'm a hell on wheels, ain't I? That doesn't work this time. Where was the guy at? Oh, I went out with a.
Now let's see what she says. She's given a chance, Angela, to watch all these scenes along with us, and let's see what she says about it. I won't get my hopes up, but let's hope.
Guy and his friends. You never told me they were fucking women. You had to look back, nigga. Fuck you. And then you're gonna do that in front of me? And then tell me you didn't do it?
Again, there's nothing wrong with being jealous. There's nothing wrong with being hurt. There's nothing wrong with complaining and saying, I don't like being in a strip club. I didn't like the fact that you were looking at those other women. Okay. But how do you communicate that? Do you do it in an abusive manner, or do you do it in a... There's so many other dysfunctional options besides abusive that we've seen on this show, right? It's always the abuse. It's always the bullying. It's always the overpowering. It's always the sometimes physical.
Something's not right here. You have told two different stories here, and that's been our problem in the beginning. You can't not live two lives.
Now, in that moment, I remember Angela was keeping it under control, and she was coming across as a little bit more differentiated. It was just like, what's going on here? You hear those two different voices, and so I think she's capable of it at times anyway. So, I'll give her credit in that scene, at least in the beginning, that she held it together.
Wheels.
All right, Michael, do you lie as much as Angela thinks you lie?
It's not all the time I lie. It's not even up to that extent. But let me say misunderstanding, misconception. That's what I feel most times.
Yeah, if I were to interpret his statement here, that because he could easily say, like other people on the show, I never lie, even though so I think what he's saying is, yes, I do lie sometimes, and I have, and I've admitted to some, but a lot of the times there's this misconception that happens that she reacts to, right? Like when she was going through surgery, there was some kind of conflict between the two of them, and they were out of touch for a little bit, and Angela was just positive that he was cheating and all these other things, which could be true, and would make sense given that he has cheated in the past. But anyway, it's interesting to hear his response, because he's not denying it. He's essentially saying, yes, I do lie sometimes.
Because if I tell her the truth, that's when she thinks I'm lying.
So you don't lie all the time, just like a little bit of the time?
No, just little, to be honest, little.
They're laughing about it, but I don't think it's a laughing situation. I think it's, at the very least, you could say it's a dynamic between the two of them where he's terrified to tell the truth because he's worried that she's gonna be upset. But on the worst end of the explanation, he's being abused, and when you're abused, sometimes you lie to get out of abuse. I don't think it's a laughing situation.
And that's
all the time.
Now, I will say that there was evidence of him lying. Well, it's hard to know, but it seemed like in the beginning of the relationship, the abuse hadn't mounted to a certain level, and so there were lies that he committed that seemed just motivated by his own selfishness, which he's absolutely responsible for. And I'm not going to excuse that, obviously. You know me when it comes to lying. I'm often saying, you're a kindergarten teacher. You literally learned this when you were 5 years old, that it wasn't okay to lie. And so it's not okay. And it wasn't okay when he did. But I think subsequent lies, I think he's trying to say, that's what I hear. And I'm biased, I think. But I think what I'm hearing him say is, I lie sometimes because I'm worried she's gonna lose her temper with me if I don't lie about this and that. Like, I could see how she might say, where were you yesterday? And he was out with his friends, but she calls them the goofballs, right? And he knows that if he says I was with my friends, she's gonna go off and get triggered and get abusive and angry at him for a week and block him on everything. So he will lie about that. It doesn't justify the lie, but it does explain it. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.